the ephah that goes out, Babylon goes out once again to the whole world. So judgment goes out to Babylon again. So that's just how we kind of infer, or I've always had it inferred, because no one else would care about swearing falsely by God's name, right? No one else would care about stealing. That was the Ten Commandments. That's what the difference was between the holy people, right? So that's just how it feels to me, right? No one else would care. The Babylon really didn't care about stealing from anybody. That was their whole thing. They were drinking out of cups they plundered from Israel, remember? That was awful. They took all their cups and they started defiling them. Yeah, in Daniel. That was awful. But Zechariah 6, I do have some current events. I hesitate to bring it up, but I do want to. So I'm going to.
I'm going to try to remember the exact quote, but he said that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword. God is never on the side of those who wield the sword. I'm pretty sure that he said that exact statement. Now, on the one hand, again, I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword?
So this is J.D. Vance, Vice President. He is talking about the war, and he's saying that, the Pope it's great that the Pope loves peace, but who can say that God doesn't love nations that wield the sword? Well, Jesus, the Lord, said, put your sword away. So they're always trying to use religion to kind of justify the things that go on in the world. But I don't know if Jesus would approve of using your sword as a nation. I think Jesus would say, put your sword away, because all who live by the sword will die by the sword. So it always kind of annoys me a little bit when they try to use religion and they try to say our faith justifies this. But it's kind of an interesting thing that we see crop up as we're reading Zechariah, because the nations are coming against the Holy Land back then, just as they are today. And what do we do about it? What are we supposed to do? Well, I don't think the sword is really the answer Jesus would be looking for. But yeah, it's just...
Well, in light of that, though, if you look at the allies of World War II, if people hadn't stepped up and stopped Hitler, I mean, you can't just let that kind of evil just go roughshod across the world.
True, but...
I mean, it's imperative then to keep religion and government separate, because you don't want the government in your religion.
Fair enough, yeah, I could see that.
But you can't just sit by and let nuclear weapons form and threats be globally bandied about, especially if you're not standing for Israel. I mean, I believe that the Abrahamic covenant says, you need to stand with Israel. So what does that mean? What does that look like?
I don't know. I don't really know how to answer it. But it just seems like every time Jesus was faced with a threat, he didn't fight back. He stood his ground and just kind of took it, right? So if we're going to say, what would Jesus do? I don't think Jesus would take a sword and go fight the guy. So I don't know. That's why I bring this up, because it's an interesting current event. It's an interesting dichotomy that we're caught into. How do we act Christ-like and also act righteously and stand up for what is right? But when you bring up swords, it's hard not to think. When you bring up swords is the Christian faith, it's hard not to think of what Jesus said. He said, have a sword, by all means. Go buy your sword, but keep it in its sheath. I don't think Jesus would go around whacking people. So it's an interesting topic, but it's very, very difficult to navigate this kind of political climate like that. Yeah.
Well, Revelation 19:15, coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. And he will rule them with an iron scepter.
True.
We need to leave judgment up to the Lord, but it doesn't mean we stand by and do nothing in the face of global evil.
That's true, but then you're just committing murder too, right? So is that good? Well, I don't know.
You read your Old Testament? Well, you read how many times God brought the Israelites up against one nation after the next?
True.
He told them to wipe them all out, even the children and the women.
True, but I don't know. It's a difficult thing, right? Just be careful. Jesus' sword is different in Revelation, by the way. That is his word that cuts down things. So it's not a sword. He doesn't come whacking people.
Yeah, I don't really agree with you there, because as a nation, we must take a stand.
Okay, that's why I bring it up. I'm just saying. But hey, I don't know. Thou shalt not murder and put your sword away is pretty clear.
Well, murder is one thing, but, you know, to.
What are you going to do with the sword?
Yeah, God believes in boundaries.
Yeah.
He, you know, established boundaries himself in Israel.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah. All right, I'm just saying, be real careful. They always try to get people with faith, too. They're like, hey, your faith says to do this. Go do it. But be careful, because they're trying real hard. They're trying real hard to beat those drums, aren't they? Always trying to get us into something, especially with our faith. But let's keep going here. We're going to go with Zechariah 6. Oh, you can't even see it. Oh, well. I will read it anyway. Yeah, okay. That's a lot of contrast. But hey, we're going to work on that. But let's go here. Zechariah 6:1. This is, I believe, the last vision he has on judgment to the nations. This is chapter 6. And verse 1, sorry. And I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of brass. In the first chariot were red horses, in the second chariot black horses, and in the third chariot white horses, and in the fourth chariot grizzled and bay horses. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, What are these, my Lord? That sounds revelation-y. That sounds like something we've probably read over and over again. But this is, you could say, a vision of judgment in the same way that we see it in Revelation. So he sees these 4 horses, and we're going to hear 4 a lot. We're going to hear 4 this, 4 that. The Lord always sends 4, but 4 horses. And they were red and black and white and grizzled and bay. There's a lot to say about grizzled and bay. People have had a heck of a time trying to figure out what that means in the King James Version. I've always heard gray and spotted, and I've also heard green. So it kind of goes both ways. In Revelation, we hear that it's kind of pale. We hear a pale, and we kind of hear of a greenish, pestilency color. So grizzled and bay, I've heard different interpretations of, but gray and spotted is probably the most typical. And as we read in Revelation, red usually means war. Black usually means there's pestilence or famine. And white usually means conquest. And the grizzled and bay usually means disease. So we have these same horses appearing again. I'm sorry, did I miss you, Chris?
Yeah, I've heard dapple.
What's that mean? Sharply dressed? Dapper?
Dapple.
Dapper. Okay, so spotted, same kind of thing? Okay, yeah, we'll go with spotted. We'll go with diverse. That's always how I've heard it interpreted, a kind of diverse horse. But dappled, grizzled, and bay horse. So basically the same horses from Revelation, right? And it's judgment. So it's the same concept here. But this is the 4 horses that go out from 2 mountains. What does the 2 mountains mean? Who knows? It could be the Mount of Olives, could be Mount Zion. But we have this idea of judgment going out from the mountains of the Holy Land, from the Lord himself. And Zechariah asks, what are these, my Lord? Zechariah is always asking questions, which is great. He never gives you this definitive answer himself. He waits from the answer from the Lord, which is really great about Zechariah. Some of the prophets will always kind of interpret it immediately. Zechariah always asks, what are these, my Lord? But we read about these chariots and horses that go out. And in Haggai, it says, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of kingdoms of the heathen. I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses gather, and the riders shall come down every one by the sword of his brother. So that is a promise in Haggai of fulfillment of this. That's actually going to go out, a foreshadowing of this judgment coming to the kingdoms. What are the kingdoms? Babylon, Persia, Greek, all the folks that we read about in Daniel, and all the folks that have tormented the Holy Land thus far. But this reminds us also in Zechariah further, and his feet shall stand that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. The Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west, and there shall be a very great valley. Once again, the second coming of Christ. Jesus will come upon the Mount of Olives, and it will separate into two. It will leave a great valley. So he departed on the Mount of Olives, essentially, and he will return on the Mount of Olives. And it says so in Zechariah 14. We will get there shortly. But this is probably the mountain through which these judgments are going to go out from the Holy Land. One of these mountains would be the Mount of Olives, and maybe the Mount of Offense right below it. But this is another interesting thing, too. It says mountains of brass in our interpretations. Typically, brass means bronze in the Bible. And does anyone remember brass feet, brass legs that we read a couple books ago?
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel. I think Revelation too, actually. That might just be Jesus' feet, though. But yeah, exactly. Daniel. And Jesus in Revelation, I believe, has feet of bronze as well. This is this beautiful, beautiful goldish color, and it kind of represents judgment. It's firm judgment. So the Lord stands in firm judgment. So when it says mountains of brass, these are mountains of firm judgment. Bronze. Yeah.
Well, is the idea that they're immovable, like the idea of comparing them to brass or bronze, is that they're
Yeah.
strong and immovable?
That's a good idea. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, brass would be, it was very durable. But it wasn't as durable as bronze, though. Bronze is, I believe, copper and tin, while brass is copper and zinc. So bronze is actually more durable than brass. But when they say brass, they usually mean bronze, right? Yeah, Sister Ray.
In one of my studies, it said that the mountain signifies strength and stability,
Oh.
indicating that God's judgment is firm and unyielding.
Beautiful.
I believe that was God.
Perfect. Well, there you go. Ray answered it much better. But yeah, exactly.
Could you please repeat that?
It said that the mountain signifies strength and stability, indicating that God's judgment is firm and unyielding.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I got the word firm, though. Perfect. I love it. Exactly. And this isn't an uncommon material in the ancient world either. But let's just see the Mount of Olives again. This is probably one of the mountains mentioned. This is one of the mountains of brass. This is the Mount of Olives as it looks today, where Jesus departed and where Jesus was praying before his arrest. It ran better on my computer, but this is all the grave sites where most of the prophets are buried. So when Jesus comes, this mountain will be cleaved in twain, and you can kind of think of the dead being resurrected there as well. But this is the Mount of Olives today, and right below it, the Mount of Offense. So these could be the two mountains through which they're talking about here. This would be the mountain of judgment, and it is a very firm mountain. Israel and Jerusalem itself is full of mountains. But this is not an uncommon material in the ancient world. Bronze was very, very popular. This is the Colossus of Rhodes. That was in Rhodes when they built it on the docks. It was an ancient wonder of the world. Guess what? It was destroyed by an earthquake. So the only statue that we know of to stand as the sun god with these brass legs was actually toppled by a mysterious earthquake. Can you believe it? But you can imagine going under this amazing wonder of the world and just kind of peeking up. But might want to cover that, right? Not very. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting wonder and an interesting fate. Yeah.
I struggle to understand these four chariots and the colors and the directions that they're heading. I don't understand the symbolic idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the red and the famine and the black and the pestilence or whatever, but
Just like
so
it
what's
read.
the whole idea with this one going east and that one going north and whatever? And do these indicate like the four winds of heaven?
Yeah, I like that. Well, we'll get to that in just a second, okay? We'll get into 4. 4 is a huge number right now. So we'll get into 4. But yeah, the next couple verses, they're going to talk about where these are going and how that's interpreted. Because these nations don't necessarily go in the 4 cardinal directions either, right? So that's kind of weird. But yeah, let's go into it. This is just a funny video of chariot riding. It's the only funny scene from year 1 of the movie. But it doesn't even work. But it goes really slow. So Compared to the way that we travel today, chariots were a very slow method of travel. But it must have been a blast for them, right? So chariots were the big thing at the time. So if you were up against chariots, you better have an army, right? You better be ready. So these chariots were very, very scary to any unprepared nation. If a nation heard that there were chariots of judgment coming, it was a big deal. So let's keep going. Let's interpret these next verses of these nations. So it goes out in 4 directions. Verse 5. And the angel answered and said unto me, here we go, answers. These are the 4 spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. The black horses which are therein go forth into the north country, while the white go forth after them. And the grizzled, dappled, led go forth into the south country. And the bay went forth and sought go, that they might walk to and fro on the earth. He said, get ye hence, walk to and fro on the earth. So they walked to and fro upon the earth. Then he cried upon me and spake unto me, saying, behold, these that go toward the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. So this is a little bit of an explanation we get here. Zechariah is the one who asked. The angel answered and said to me, these are the 4 spirits of the heavens. Now someone asked me not long ago, and I don't like mentioning names when people come to me, but someone asked me, what's with this number 4? You keep mentioning 4. There's 4 beasts, 4 winds, 4 directions, 4 cardinal directions. What's this supposed to represent? It doesn't, okay, I thought it was 3. Wasn't it the Trinity? Wasn't it the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and Father, right? Why is 4 coming up? Well, I mean, 4 is very important to God, right? Into nature. The thing that God created is 4. All the animals stand on 4 legs. They're quadrupeds. 4 seasons. There were 4 rivers going out of Eden. There's 4 beasts in Daniel. There's 4 winds in Revelation. So this is just physical stability. This just means that this is a perfect physical representation of something. Whereas the Trinity is a perfect spiritual representation of something. So when you hear 4, I'm sure you can think of some. There's a lot of examples of 4 in the Bible. But if you can think of some, I wish I had some prizes for you. But 4 just represents perfect physical stability. 4. Right? You stand on 4. So this is 4 spirits of the heavens which go forth to these nations. Black horses go in the north, and then some actually go south at a certain point. But in Ezekiel it says, thus saith the Lord, this is Jerusalem, I have set it in the midst of the nations and the countries that are round about her. Basically, Jerusalem is the center of God's eye, center of the world to God. So when we look at these directions, we have to think of where Jerusalem is. Where did these horses go? Well, that's not the right map. Uh-oh. There we go. So Jerusalem's up in this little part here. So we can think that the north country would be towards Syria. It would be towards Syria or Turkey. We would also think that south of there would be towards Egypt. The primal enemy of Israel is Egypt, right? So Egypt would be the south country. Now you might be thinking, what about Babylon? That's pretty important, right? Well, there's an explanation for that. So when these horses go out to judge the nations, and they go out to Babylon, they're not going to go to the east. They're going to go north. Why is that? Because if you were going to invade Israel or Babylon, you don't want to cross, well, it doesn't work, but you don't want to cross this big desert, right? My videos aren't working so well today. But you don't want to cross the Judean desert. No one crossed the Judean desert to invade. So when nations or Babylon came to invade Israel, they would come from the north. This would not be where you would send your chariots. This would not be where you send anything. And we see this in warfare today. You don't go near the big Judean desert. So this is Babylon in current day, and that's the Judean desert in current day. So when the horses go north, they're actually going not only to Syria and the former Assyrian Empire, they're actually going to Babylon as well. So this is how this is interpreted. When they go to the north country, they're going forth to not only Babylon, but Assyria and all the nations that have invaded Israel so far from the north. Even Rome attacked from the north. You would think that they would conquest by sea a lot, but they really marched from the north, and the Greeks did as well. So when the judgments go out to the nations, you'll always hear it going out to the north. That's where they would invade the Holy Land, except for Egypt. That's why we're going to see that the horses also go south. But let's read a little bit further here, just to see where these other judgments are going here. Verse 9, right? Yes. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Take of them of the captivity, even Heldai, the Tobiah, and of Jediah, which are come from Babylon, and come into thou the same day, and go into the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. Take the silver and gold, make crowns, and set them upon the head of Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest, and speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. A little bit of whiplash, because we go judgments, and then we go to assurance of the Holy Land. But after these horses go out, they go to the north country, and they go to the south country, and now he's going to reassure Zechariah, which is kind of weird. It's kind of weird to just go from one to the other, but here we are. The Lord came unto me, saying, Go to these people of the captivity and fashion a crown from this offering. These people have interesting names too. Take of them of the captivity. Even Heldai, the enduring one, is what that means. Tobijai, the Lord is good, and God cares. So we have God's balance here. We have God's warning, we have God's judgment, and then we have this assurance. We have this promise going out. Kind of weird, but this is just how the Lord always works. And he says, Go into the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah, take the silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the head of Joshua, son of Josedek, the high priest. And he crowns them. He crowns the high priest here with this crown. You don't crown a high priest. It wasn't right back in the day to crown the high priest. You crowned kings. You don't crown a high priest. So what is actually being promised here is not crowned high priest. This is the joining of high priest and king into this branch that's mentioned in verse 12. Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place and shall build the temple of the Lord. Crowning the high priest Joshua, but also teasing the Messiah to come, showing us that there will be a Messiah that joins both kingliness and high priest into one office in the temple of the Lord, which is about to be rebuilt. And we read in Mark 14:58, we heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands. So that is Jesus' words, and this is Jesus the branch, being crowned 500 years before he was born. So it's pretty incredible. It's pretty amazing that we have this prophecy foretelling this joining of the high priest and kingly offices of Israel into one, and crowning a high priest, which was unheard of. So it is said that this crown is going to be put in the temple until the Messiah comes. So the high priest by no means was supposed to wear a crown. Right? But let's just finish out this chapter, and then that will be... Yes, please, I'm sorry.
Out too that by uniting, by putting the crown on the high priest, and then you had the king, they actually had to work together to restore Israel at this particular time. But the branch was going to come later, and he was going to be both the king and the high priest, and it would only take him, or it took the two of them to actually restore anything. So that part kind of stood out to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Right.
Right, yeah, but it was taking them 20 years, decades. It was taking them decades to build this temple, to make the Holy Land great again. But this branch was going to do it in 3 days. This branch that would be raised up. And I like that you say that too, because it says, the branch and he shall grow up out of his place. I didn't highlight that, but that's important too, right? He grows up out of this place. He's not a nation. It's not a nation growing up, surveying the whole world. It's just growing up out of this place, like a plant, right? So it's going to grow up out of this place. And remember, he will be cut down, right? So this is this growing up out of this place. It's a small branch that grows into a rock, that grows into this solid foundation. But yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. It took him so long, and now he's going to do it in one office. You no longer need all these different offices. Remember, they wanted a king. That was the craziest chapters of all. They wanted a king to rule over them rather than their high priest. So they got both, that's for sure. Now let's keep going here. We'll finish with verse 13. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and shall be a priest upon his throne. And the counsel of peace shall be between them both. And the crowns shall be to Elam and Tobijah, and to Jediah, and to Hen, the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord. And ye shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me unto you. And this shall come to pass, if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. And that finishes the whole promise. This finishes the entire balance of the chapter. We have the warning, we have the judgment, we have the promise, and now we have this fulfillment coming forward. So once again, we have 4, right? We have the 4 coming in. But he says that even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory and sit and rule upon his throne. He shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. We read in Revelation about this miraculous kingdom, this miraculous New Jerusalem. And John says in Revelation, I did not see a temple in this city. Can you imagine trying to build a temple all this time, and then in Revelation, you don't even see one? I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord of God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is the lamp. The Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. Revelation 21:22. And this is great, because in Revelation we read that the nations bring things to New Jerusalem. They bring things to the Holy Land. They no longer plunder the kings. They no longer plunder the high priests. They no longer take the people. They bring things to it to enjoy. So this is this promise being fulfilled in Revelation all the way back in Zechariah. It says to make these crowns, and these crowns shall be dedicated to Elam, Tobijah, Jediah, and to Hen, which means gracious, and the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. So it's pretty much argued that Joshua wasn't to wear this crown as a credit to his pride, but this crown was to be for the Messiah. This crown was to be for the joining of these 2 offices. And they that are far off shall come and build the temple of the Lord, and ye shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you. And it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. So once again, that finishes out the promise that was given to them after the judgment went out. So 5 is kind of judgment, and then 6 is kind of the fulfillment of these things. But that's just the only image I can find of New Jerusalem that looks anywhere near interesting, the coming out of the heavens as it describes in Revelation. But you can see so many different interpretations of it, but I think this is probably what we had more in our minds, a perfect Garden of Eden from heaven. But that will be, I think, the end. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Did I answer Rachel about the horses at all?
I had a question on verse 15. It says, those who are far away will come and help to build the temple of the Lord. I don't know if that's like a bringing back of those who were dispersed, or the Jews, or if that's the Gentiles. Because sometimes in the Bible when it mentions the islands or those, another sheep pen and those far away, he's talking about the Gentiles. So is this a prophecy about, when Nehemiah and Zerubbabel and them came back, and the other Jews were coming back under Cyrus to rebuild? Or
Well-
is this, a further glimpse into the future to talk about the Gentiles becoming part of the house of the Lord?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a law of double reference, right? So if you're Hebrew, you're going to view this crowning of the high priest, and you're going to view this temple as being fulfilled right now. You're going to build this, the branch was Joshua, right? Because they don't believe that Jesus Christ was the branch, right? So they are going to say that Joshua was the branch, and this temple was Herod's temple, the temple that was built right afterwards. But, I mean, we can see from the New Testament and from the Christian doctrine, we can see that this is an allusion to Revelation. So when you could read it, you could say both ways, right? You could say that it's people from far off. You could say that it's us. So, I mean, it's kind of how you want to interpret it. I got my cane. That's the worst kind of cane, the cane on the ground. But that's true, right? It's a law of double reference. You could think of it as Hebrew interpretation of this being fulfilled right now, or you could say, hey, this sounds just like Revelation. So it kind of goes both ways. But people from far off, to me, doesn't sound like, our old buddies in Babylon. It sounds like the idols, like you said. It kind of sounds like the nations that are far off. So it says that people of all nations, colors, and creeds will come to worship at this temple. So that's not fulfilled in Zechariah. That's fulfilled in our time. That's fulfilled today. Now that Israel is reborn, people from all over come to worship at the mountain. So, hey, you can take it both ways there. So,
Sounds like a future prophecy.
that's what I think. That's what I think. But yeah, I mean, a lot of Hebrew scholars will say that these things were fulfilled in Zechariah with Joshua and the second temple. But to me, this is a promise of the Lord coming. The branch is in all capitals, like the Lord Jesus Christ. Right? So that's how Christians will take it. But yeah, any other conundrums, contemplations?
I thought too that, Zechariah is talking to them returning out of exile, and he's giving them the Lord's message, and the Lord's message is really full of how can I say, hope and encouragement. It's full of hope and encouragement for them. And then he goes on to even give them prophecy of the future, that he's going to take care of, the Lord's going to take care of them in the future if they do their part with the Lord. The Lord's going to take care of them. And but through our whole lesson is that he is encouragement, that he's encouraged them. God has told Zechariah to encourage them. So they keep up the good work, or keep up God's work.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful, and I like that because it says, if you will diligently obey. If. So the judgment that went out was clearly to the people of Israel as well, because some folks, we know, stayed in Babylon. A lot of folks liked it there. A lot of people liked it in this nation. So I agree 100%. Sister Ray's right here. If you diligently obey, that's not a guarantee. That is, you must be obedient to the Lord. And then, by His Spirit will He make things possible. Not by strength, not by power, right? As we read before. But any other prattlings, predicaments? All right, well, let's see if this other video works real quick. I've been trying.
Tear down this temple,
See?
and in 3 days I will build it again. Are you going to build it again in 3 days?
I can't seem to figure this thing out.
46 years to build this temple.
But the temple Jesus was speaking about
I tried.
was his body.
But it was a clip of Jesus declaring that He will build the temple in 3 days, which I believe is alluded to in this chapter as well. But Zechariah says that this temple will be built with this high priest and king in one office. Jesus said, I will rebuild this temple, and the Pharisees didn't understand that He meant the temple of His body. He meant this Holy Spirit. And of course, He walks away knowing, and they walk away pretty confused. But it's a great scene. It just kind of shows this mystery, this thing that could not be comprehended by the people of the times. These people who swore falsely by God's name that we read just earlier. But anyway, that will be...
Tear down this temple.
Hey, wait a minute. Now it wants to go. Oh, hey. That's the end of the chapter. Zechariah 6 was all about God's balance. We had the warning, the promise, the judgment, and then this fulfillment in the balance. So if you're ever thinking 4, if you're ever thinking Bible 4, this is another chapter just to look for. This is another part of God's perfect structure. Anything else? Any problems? I want my cane back. Mind if I get my cane? There. Yanked me right off the stage. Any problems? Any new prattlings? Well, good. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. Sorry if I took you a little bit over. I was eating light bulbs all day, but I wanted a light snack. See? It's a bright TV, you know? All right. Well, thank you.